Hey guys, welcome back to Coded Kaiser. It's been a little bit since I put together a video, but since I was asked about this recently by a couple different people, I've decided to go ahead and put together a build video for you. Now, I am currently playing Elder Scrolls Online, and you can see me in the character creation screen here, and we're going to build a sorcerer. Now, what kind of sorcerer you want to run is really important, but before we get into that, I just want to clarify a few things. What I will be doing is a no CP low level build, because when you look up your whenever you look up your builds, most of what you will find, unfortunately, has CP and has abilities that are already morphed, so you're not really getting a good sense of what would be good to start out with, and they don't really tell you how you would go about leveling into your build, because as you'll see shortly, how you decide to level and what abilities you use while you're doing that are extremely important, because they can either make or break your entire build from there, and it's very hard to recover from that without boosting your levels even more. So if you want to get this right the first time while you're leveling, instead of having to fix it later, then I'm going to give you a couple ways to do that. Now, I do not have the All Race All Alliance DLC content, so I have 3 races to pick from for each alliance, unfortunately. But I will go ahead and do this for you. If you happen to be running the Ebonheart Pact and you want to run MAGK or Stamina, really, for a sorcerer, your Dark Elf is going to be your best bet. 100% it's going to be your best bet, just because they have those those boosts to elemental damage, and you get the bonuses to stamina and magicka and dual wielding, which is definitely going to crop up if you're running a Stam Sorc. Now, if you're kind of going a little bit tanky, or you want to do some heals on your back bar, then Argonian is your best bet. But if you want that strict DPS, you want Dark Elf if you're running Ebonheart. Now, if you're in Aldmeri, you can utilize all 3 of the base races in the Aldmeri Dominion. High Elf is very good for Mag Sorcs, just because of the increased magicka, their boosts, their experience gain is very helpful when it's leveling up, and because all of your base attacks for a sorcerer do count as destructive spells, you get a massive boost with the damage that you can output with them if you're running as a High Elf. Now, if you're running a Stam Sorc, you can really go between Wood Elf or Khajiit. Now, Khajiit is typically one that people tend to quote if you want something that's more stealthy. However, they can be fairly tanky, and of course you do get the bonuses to stamina recovery and your weapon damage, and if you're running dual wielding or even two-handed or even bows, then that weapon damage is going to be your bread and butter. Now, for Wood Elf, obviously you get the archery, so if you happen to be running a bow on your back bar, that's wonderful. Your stamina and your stamina recovery are really great, and the fall damage is going to help you quite a lot, because something that you'll realize is that you're going to do a lot of running around, and while you tend to be a little bit faster as a Sorc than any other build, you're going to take a tumble once or twice, and you don't want that fall damage to completely take you out of the fight before you can even get in there. Now, and the disease resistance is also incredibly helpful, because one of your number 1 contenders is going to be Nightblades and Werewolves, and Werewolves, after this last patch, do a crap ton of lingering disease damage, and you want that resistance, absolutely. And poison damage is also one of those things that you're going to get a lot, because anybody that realizes that you're running a Stam Sorc, for example, is going to try and keep you at range, and they're going to use archery and destructive magic, and that's how they're going to do that. But I play in the Daggerfall Covenant, because I do PvP most of the time, so this is what we're going to go with for this build. Now, we have a couple of different options. All 3 of these can be good for Stam Sorcs. All 3 of these can absolutely be good for stamp sorks. But if you're wanting to run a MAGK sorcerer, then you can go with a Breton, and I would absolutely recommend it, because you get your MAGK bonuses and your recovery bonuses, which is really great. And if you want to play PvP with it, then you'll get that alliance points gain bonus, and you'll get spell resistance, which will make it much harder to kill you with spells, and you'll be a little bit tankier when it comes to other people running sorks, which is very helpful. Now, you could also run as a red guard if you intend to be a stamp sork, which is really, really good, because although it doesn't explicitly say it, you do get bonuses when you're using bladed weapons, and it is incredibly helpful if you happen to be running dual-wield daggers, dual-wield swords. If you're running sword and shield, or two-handed sword or two-handed axe, it's wonderful. Plus you get the stamina recovery, and the stamina recovery during combat, which is super important because not a whole lot of people know, although a good portion of players do, especially if they're not casual players. They know that whenever you enter combat, whether it's with a player or with, NPCs out in the wild, your recovery stats go down. So you want to mitigate that as best as you can, and if you want to do it with race, so it's just out of the way a little bit, red guard's your option. And if you happen, almost forgot, but if you happen to mitigate some things like how much health you have, your tankiness, you can help, or you use food to help mitigate that, and red guard will help you out quite a bit with that. And then you could also run as an orc for stamp sork. I wouldn't generally recommend running as an orc for a MAGK sorcerer, just because they have no bonuses to MAGK, and actually their starting MAGK is actually fairly low. But their health and their stamina is fairly good, but as you can see from reading the thing over here, it's mostly into health. This is really your tank class. This is, kind of what you would want for that. But they're also really helpful to have as crafters, and the bonus that you're really going to want to pay attention to is over here down at the bottom, where it says that you can get, or you've got a bonus for sprinting, which is going to be something that you're going to do a lot as a stamp sork. MAGK sork not so much, because you're going to have those options for range, as most of your attacks are going to be ranged. But if you're running stamp sork, then you're going to be sprinting a lot, and a sork can an orc can help mitigate that. But for this particular build, because we are going to be using bladed weapons, and we are going to be setting this up as purely stamp sork with MAGK boosts, we're not going to be scaling too hard into that. We are going to go with the red guard here, just because it'll be immensely helpful for us. Now, obviously, class is going to be sorcerer, and do a little bit of editing here. Oh, I can't even see that. Oh. Now, one of the other things that you have to think about is how you are going to, what gear you're going to wear, and how you're going to level into your gear, where you would like to be with that. Now, I tend to prefer, actually show you guys once I get in here. Let's go with something kind of silly this time, because I have made this build before, which is actually why I decided to go ahead and make it again, because someone asked me about it. Yeah, I always like that one, so we're gonna go with that. There we go. Looks about like me in real life. All right. We'll just stick with that. And I think that's it. Okay, so now we'll enter a name. And names are super important. If you ever happen to see my character list, then you'll know that I put a lot of thought into my names. There's a lot of out-of-game references, although generally in the world. Like my my other Sork, my other Stam Sork is actually, it's named a Sleeping Tree Harvester, and that's a reference to Skyrim for those of you that know of the Sleeping Tree. I think a good amount of people do, especially if they've completed anything in Whiterun. Most people know about that. Okay, so for this one, we're going to do... Actually, we'll cheat a little bit. There we go. That's what we'll call it. Alright, now, we have arrived at the first choice of the game for your build. Now, this is super important, and this will help you determine, or help you. It'll help. Okay, so you can either play through the tutorial or you can skip it. Now, if you decide to play through the tutorial, it gives you a little bit more of a fine-tuned control over certain aspects of the game as far as how you get your first couple levels and what skills you get in them. And that's going to be super important. That also means that, give me just a second. So, sorry about that. Anyway, so actually one of the people that had asked me about the build came in and was talking to me there for a second, so you know, now they know what I'm doing. So anyway, if you decide to go through with the tutorial, it gives you a little bit more of a fine-tuned control over how you get your first few levels in your skills, and which ones you decide to take is going to be very, very important. Or, of course, you can go ahead and skip it, and your first 2 levels, it's not super important, so you do have this option. It's not going to affect your build too much. It is going to have a very small effect while you're under level 10, but past that, not so much. You're not really going to notice that much. So, however, though, for future reference, if you want absolute fine-tuned control over each aspect of your build, I would play through the tutorial, because everything in the tutorial area of Cold Harbor is viable up until level 5. Past that, you're kind of wasting your time. And it is also a place where you can get some fairly decent crafting materials and motifs, so that's very good to keep in mind too. But for this build, since I've already played through the tutorial, having explained what the aspect is, or what the benefits are, I mean, we're going to go ahead and skip it for this character. And now we're going to go ahead and let it load. Alright, so now, first things first, I am going to go ahead and switch a few things out. Now, we'll go ahead and leave the profanity filter on. I'll leave all this the same. I guess it's not there. Okay, so we're going to turn this on, this on, this on. Turn this off. Turn this on. We'll turn all these on. Now, all this stuff right here in combat is really important, especially if you're working on your build, because this will help tell you what buffs you've got going and how long they last. Okay, so if you're running in PvP, you want to go to combat and basically just turn everything to always show, on, and numbers and percent for pretty much everything. You want it all on. Because, yeah, we'll go ahead and leave that on. So, except for from others, you don't really need that unless you want to see like what an enemy is being hit with to determine what they're weakened to or anything like that, if that kind of thing is important to you. But for what we're doing, it's not going to be super important, so it's not really a big thing. And then, and this is going to be super important here, because this will, like, you'll always know what you've got. So like if you're a vampire, you're going to know you're a vampire, but also it's super helpful because if you bite someone, you want to know how many days you got left, but don't want to open the menu to find out. It'll just show it on your screen, so it'll be nice and easy. Okay, so we'll go ahead and turn nameplates on because that's super helpful, and everything stays the same there. Interface. Okay, that's good. Okay, that's good. Okay. Oh, there we go. We'll turn the tutorials off. Turn that on. And, oh, we'll go ahead and turn this all the way down. Okay. There we go. Okay. So, now you can see here we are. Level 2. Just started the game. Everything's all hunky-dory. Now, you have either completed the tutorial or you have skipped it. Either way, you should be right here. If you've completed the tutorial without any extra level ups, then you should be at level 2. If you decided to stay in there until it wasn't viable anymore, then you'll come out at level 5. Either way, you'll have a few things that you can do. So, hit your level up rewards. And I would say save these because you do get more, and they are not level bound. So, it's very helpful. You can use them at any level. Now, we'll come back to that. So now we've got 3 skill points and 3 skills that we can unlock. We can unlock Crystal Shard, Unstable Familiar, and Mage's Fury. Now, for the most part, we are going to be using the Daedric Summoning and Storm Calling. Because what we want with the Daedric Summoning is we want to get all the way down to Conjured Ward and Bound Armor. That's what we really want. But the Daedric Curse is what we're going to be using most often. Everything else except for the passive skills we can ignore. So we don't really need Rebate, but Power Stone is going to be super helpful. A Daedric Protection is going to be incredibly helpful since we're going to nearly constantly have Daedric Curse slotted. And when you get that far, Expert Summoner, you don't really need it. I spoke before I read it. My bad. Okay. Now, for Mag Sorcs, Overload is going to be your bread and butter. For Stam Sorcs, not so much, so we're going to ignore it. Now, we have Lightning Form, which is definitely what we're going to need. So we're going to unlock that and get that. Lightning Splash, not so much. Surge is the other thing that we're going to need. Out of this line, we're going to need Lightning Form and Surge. And in order to do that, we're going to have to level up this, we're going to have to level all this up. So, and I'll go ahead and run through what we're going to get so that you don't have to watch the whole video if you don't particularly want to. But what we're going to go with is Crystal Shard for our ranged. And we're going to use it a lot. But eventually, we're going to get Dark Exchange. And then if you want to, of course you don't have to, if you want to, you can also go with Daedric Mines. However, Dark Exchange is what we eventually want to get with our Dark Magic line, but we're going to be using Crystal Shard the most, and that's going to be our range. Okay. Now, you want Unholy Logic for the stand buff. Okay. You also want Blood Magic, just because that's going to be incredibly helpful, especially if you're at range and you need some emergency health. That Crystal Shard's going to help you out a lot. Persistence, I would go with if you find that you are being hit a lot and find yourself blocking a lot with this build, then I would go ahead and get it, just because it's going to help you with some emergency DPS. And Exploitation is going to be incredibly helpful, because your spell critical also counts towards your enchantments, which is super helpful, and it also counts towards damage that's applied with any spell ability that you cast. So Crystal Shard, Daedric Curse, Lightning Form, anything that it does, that's going to help you out a lot. And it's going to be minuscule, but you are going to notice it. Then, of course, you've got Soul Trap here. Now, in the Soul Magic line, we are going to get Soul Strike, and we are going to get 2 points into Soul Shatter. Now, you can go with Soul Summons if you want to. If this is something that you want to run as a PvE instead of a PvP build, then absolutely you can run it with no issues. And Soul Lock, you can absolutely run through that. If you find yourself running low on Soul Gems all the time but have a whole bunch of empties, then you can go ahead and go with that. But for PvP, which is primarily what I'm going to build this for, you want Soul Strike and you want Soul Shatter. So we're not going to be using Soul Trap at all, because we don't really need it. And the only way to level this line up is to go through the main quest line, which we can absolutely do, and that should be enough to level us out. If I start at level 11, we'll be about level 22 when we get out, okay? So, instead of doing that, we're going to start at current level. But first, what we need to do is get out of this ship one way or another, because I've got to get a bank. I've got to go to the bank. I don't think there are banks in Strasbourg. We're not in Strasbourg, are we? Yeah, we are. Okay. Nope. Cool. Alright, now. Oh, I forgot. I've got another thing coming to me. So, since we're going to go ahead and try to level up these lines, what we want is to get Crystal Shard. Definitely. And we're going to go ahead and get Mage's Fury. And we're going to go ahead and get this right here. Now, one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that when it comes to your familiars, you can level up your Daedric summoning line just by having them out and active. It doesn't even matter if they do anything, as long as they're out and active, you'll get points for it. So, here we'll go. Go ahead and pull them out, and that'll go ahead and help us out with anything that we do. Plus, there is little benefits for having him out. You recast him, and he'll start doing AoE damage, which is going to be super helpful if you decide to keep him out while you're fighting a whole bunch of people and you do a lot of AoE damage like I do. Okay, is he done? Yeah, he's done. Okay, so now, there's a lot of ways to get a crap ton of XP really quickly. One of the quickest ways is just to quest. Just to start questing, okay? Hold on. What we're going to do is go ahead and start getting into the skill line that we want. And since we're starting early, what we really want is another sword. And I forgot to craft some, which will be fine, because it's not going to take much to actually get everything taken care of. Oh, before I forget, we also have, before you go to skills and set your attributes, go to your character sheet and do it there, because it'll tell you exactly what it's adding. Okay, and so what we're going to do is for these low levels right here, we're going to go ahead and boost our stamina for both of these. And you'll see our stamina has kind of gone up just a little bit. Low levels, it's going to be a little bit, it's going to be a little bit different for low levels than it is for high levels, but that's just kind of the way of it. And I've got, champion points. So you can see that I've got, roughly 34, 35, 36. I don't know why that confused me. I've got 36 champion points. However, because it's a low level build, we're not going to use them. Okay, or I'm going to try to avoid using them if I can. However, if it it starts proving a little bit tough, then I'll go ahead and use them to kind of increase my survivability. But again, because it's the low level build, we're going to try to avoid it as much as we can. So what we're going to do, since I have no money on this tune, what we're going to do is find a merchant. Well, actually, we're going to find a way shrine first. There's one over here. And I don't have a mount set. That's usually the first thing I do. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go with the lion this time. Oh, and just because I have him, I think I'm gonna go ahead and go with. There he is. So now I've got two little Daedra following me around. Ain't that cute? Only one's gonna fight for me though, and that's gonna be annoying. But there it is. All right. Make sure we're going the right way. We are not. I mean, we kind of are. It's not going to hurt us to go the other way, but we'll go this way just because it'll be easier. Is there swords? Oh, there's a great sword. Not really what we're looking for. Okay, so we'll just keep going. Now, we're going to go ahead and go to... We're going to go ahead and go to Auradon first, and then we're going to go to Daggerfall, because that is how we start the Harborage. So we go to Daggerfall, and that's going to be very helpful for us. So, bam. Now, you can complete all the way up to Cadwell Silver and be low level. Used to be you'd be fairly high level before you'd or higher level before you'd complete it, which is, I mean, it's still pretty true now, but it really depends on how you run it, how quickly you run through it. And this might take a couple of videos, but we can absolutely get through this fairly quickly. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And it's not just about the build, it's also about leveling. So you can think of this as not just your build guide, but also your leveling guide. As soon as this loads in, we'll continue.
Do you know how long I've been looking for you?
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and visit the bank. There we go. Started the Harborage. Awesome. Oh, and don't be shy about running around exploring and, finding new things, because that's free experience, man. You want that experience as easily as it comes to you.
My friend, you've come to make a deposit, yes?